taking turns. So the deal was struck anyway. The deal was there was going to be a power-sharing government in the north of Ireland, Catholics and Protestants working together. George Mitchell was going to oversee the elections. The British Army were taken off the streets, brought to barracks. The borders between the north and south were come down to give people ease of travel. You saw that today, driving up from the south of Ireland into the north we went. No border checkpoints, no border control, no passport control, no nothing. The paramilitary organisations, they were all to be disbanded. Their guns and ammunition were all to be decommissioned. George Mitchell was to oversee all of that. The last point of the deal was again to do with the paramilitaries. The British government could not agree. They didn't agree with the last point of the deal whatsoever. The last point of the deal was members of these illegal paramilitary organisations who had been jailed for being members of these organisations in Ireland, England, Scotland and Wales and even further afield, they were all to be released from prison within 3 years of the signing of the deal. And the governments said no. The Irish and the British government said no. So they were brought into a room and they had their heads banged together and they were told, listen, in 1972 you had a chance to stop this slaughter that was going on in Northern Ireland and you didn't do it. You sat back and you watched it happen. You had a chance and you didn't do it. It's in your legacy that you did not do it. It's now 1998. Would you like to have it in your legacy again from 1998? So reluctantly, the two governments got to talking and eventually they agreed to the final part of the deal. Eventually. The deal was signed on Good Friday of 1998, hence the name, the Good Friday Agreement. And for the first time in 29 years, guys, peace fell across these islands. The good people of Northern Ireland, be they Protestant or be they Catholic, they could leave their homes. They could walk down the streets, not having to worry or look over their shoulder at who was walking down the street behind them. The north of Ireland, guys, was reborn in 1998. And today, thankfully, we are still living in that peace. Now, when the elections were held that year, when the results of the elections came out, the Protestants here in Northern Ireland had the majority. They had the bigger numbers, they had the bigger jobs in the government. The political party representing Catholics is called the Sinn Féin political party. They were once the political wing of the IRA. They were the leadership of the IRA, the illegal paramilitary organisation. But coming into those elections in 1998, they gave an undertaking and they gave a commitment to the people of this country that they would turn their backs on the bombs and the shootings and the killings and the maimings. And they have kept that promise till this very day. So, when the elections were held, it was a very, very bumpy road for that new government, new power-sharing government from 1998 onwards. And over the following years, guys, they had their disagreements. On numerous occasions, the government collapsed, but they always got back around the negotiating table and they always got back to the business of the day, and that was to have a power-sharing government here in Northern Ireland. All of a sudden, it's 2016, 9 years ago. What happened 9 years ago? Brexit. The British wanted out of the European Union. They said they were paying too much money into it and they weren't getting enough out of it. So they held a referendum. And that's the way the vote went over in mainland UK. They voted to leave. But up here in Northern Ireland, the vote went the opposite direction. They voted to stay within the European Union, and that gave the English government another headache. What are we going to do with Northern Ireland? So, all of a sudden, 4 years passed by. It's now 2020. And eventually, they've been talking for 4 years with the European Union about Northern Ireland. They strike a deal. The deal is struck in 2020. It's called the Protocol Deal. Now, the Protocol Deal just meant and said, even though the north of Ireland was not going to be a part of the European Union on paper, but they could remain trading as if they were, for the sake of jobs and industry. There was no extra levies and or taxes on goods coming into or leaving Northern Ireland. There was no extra border checkpoints or anything like that. So basically, it was as if they were still a part of the European Union, but on paper they were not. And for 2 years the government here in Northern Ireland kept their mouth shut, until 2022. And the leader of the government here in Northern Ireland in 2022, a fellow called Jeffrey Donaldson, he decided Protestants were losing their identity. They didn't want to be recognised as Irish or being recognised as being European, and he felt they were. So he decided to use this as an issue to collapse the government and go to this country here in Northern Ireland, to the people, and have a general election. He did. And basically he shot himself in his 2 feet, not just one, because when the votes in that election came back, it was the Catholics who now had the majority here in Northern Ireland. For the first time in history. It would be a Catholic at the head of the government in Northern Ireland. But he said, no, I'm not going to go into government with a Catholic at the head of the government. It's beneath me. 2 out of 3 of the political parties representing Protestants said yes, we will go into power with you. The guy who used to be the leader of the government, his political party, the Democratic Unionist Party, they said no. So what happened over 2 years was we had a standoff. No government here in Northern Ireland. So Mr. Donaldson and his political party, the DUP, what they basically did was they held the people of Northern Ireland as a ransom to the British government for them to go back and renegotiate the protocol deal of 2020. 2 years, guys, we had a standoff, we had no government. And in that 2 years, Mr. Donaldson, the leader of the DUP party, he came out with a couple of statements. He said that he would not bow, he would not answer to a Catholic at the head of the government here in Northern Ireland. Time would tell. But he also came out with another statement. He said that he wanted it written into British law that the north of Ireland, where we are today, will always be a part of the United Kingdom. Now, when he came out with that statement, the press here in Northern Ireland, they had a field day. They said the man was delusional. Time would tell. So, 2023, late 2023, he gets his way. He gets the British government to go back to the European Union and renegotiate the protocol deal of 2020. They come back to the table with the new deal. Mr. Donaldson still is not happy. So the standoff is still going on. So he wanted clarification on certain issues in the new deal, basically to do with finance. So late in 2023 that was the case. He got his clarification January of 2024. This is only last year, guys. This is how recent we are. So last year, 2024, the gates are open for new power sharing government to be set up in Northern Ireland. Mr. Donaldson, you have to remember that it would be a Catholic at the head of the government. He said he wouldn't bow to a Catholic. So what he did was he took a step to one side, and instead of him going into that government, the new power sharing government, he put another member of his political party into that government in his place. The lady's name is Emma Pengelly. She is now the Assistant First Minister of Northern Ireland. Just for the record, she is not an elected representative of the people here in Northern Ireland. She was a member of the DUP, the Democratic Unionist Party, of his political party. So she was given the job without being an elected representative. He has taken a step to the side. Now, the leader of the government here in Northern Ireland today, guys, is another lady called Michelle O'Neill. She's very articulate. She's a Catholic. She's a part of the leadership of the Sinn Féin political party here in Northern Ireland. And the two ladies have been sworn in February of last year, and they are working very, very well together. And when they were sworn in as Minister and First Minister and Assistant First Minister, they gave a commitment to the people of this part of the world that they would work for all communities. The two women are working very, very well together. They're doing a very good job. Mr. Donaldson, well, in the last 15 months, what has happened? He has resigned as the leader of his political party. But Protestants in the north of Ireland have also said that he has disgraced every Protestant in Northern Ireland. He has been expelled from his political party. His political career has finished. Dead in the water. Gone. Mr. Donaldson is currently in hiding. I'm told. These are not my words. This is what I've been told by people here in Northern Ireland. Mr. Donaldson, the once leader of the Democratic Unionist Party, the biggest political party representing Protestants here in Northern Ireland, he is currently in hiding. Why? He is currently awaiting trial on sexual abuse and rape charges. Not just him, but also his wife, for aiding and abetting. Now, the trial has been put off. They were to stand trial in March. It was put off. And I only read in the newspaper yesterday where the trial is going to go ahead. They're hoping that the trial will go ahead in November of this year, but they're saying that his wife is suffering from mental illness and she is not fit to stand trial. So they're trying to move that along, and they're saying now that she will be fit in November of this year. So watch the space. But Mr. Donaldson is currently in hiding. He hasn't been seen. The reason for that, guys, now I did mention earlier on that the illegal paramilitary organisations have been disbanded because of the peace deal of 1998. But to be quite honest, I'd be very, very sceptical about that. I wouldn't say they're gone 100%. But during the time of the conflict here in Northern Ireland, the illegal paramilitary organisations, they had a reputation for dishing out their own punishment. And these punishments came in the form of punishment shootings. So you would be, if they thought you were, you did something wrong and you should be punished for it, they would drag you out of your bed in the middle of the night, they'd drag you up to a field or a forest up the road, and they'd blow your elbows off, and they'd blow your ankles off, and they'd blow your kneecaps off. 6 bullets. And they'd leave you there. Mr. Donaldson is fearing for his life, because it won't be his kneecaps, and it won't be his ankles, and it won't be his elbows. So he is currently in hiding. So I'm told. So watch this space. Watch this space. In the last 27 years, guys, we've come a long, long way in this part of the world. And I mean a long, long way. The relationship between the countries has never been as good. The late Queen of England, Queen Elizabeth II, she was Queen. I was contradicted on this the other day, right? She was Queen for 70 years and 214 days. I was told I was wrong. Right? She was Queen for 70 years and 214 days, okay? And during her time as Queen, she had been here in Northern Ireland, in every village and every town in Northern Ireland. She had never set foot in the Irish Republic until 2011. And in 2011, she was invited in 2010, she came to visit in 2011, and she was welcomed with open arms by the people of the Irish Republic. She was the guest of honour at a state dinner, and again, you might remember, you might have seen some of the images on TV screens. She was the guest of honour at a state dinner, and when she stood up to give a speech in Dublin Castle, the room that evening was full of dignitaries and celebrities and ordinary everyday people, politicians and journalists. She got up to give a speech, and the first lines of that speech were in Irish. People in the room couldn't believe, here was the Queen of England in Dublin speaking Irish. Now those images were flashed across TV screens around the world. It's unfortunate to say, out on the streets of Dublin when that was going on, we had some brain-dead young people protesting to the fact that the Queen of England was in Dublin at all, or in the Irish Republic at all. And these were the same brain-dead young people wearing football jerseys of two of the biggest English football clubs there are, Manchester United and Liverpool. Here they were, supporting English football clubs, wearing the English football team jerseys, out on the streets of Dublin, protesting to the fact that the Queen of the country that their English football teams are based in was in Dublin. How brain dead is that? Now, if you had a son or a daughter, and they were out protesting to the fact that the Queen was in Dublin and they were out wearing football jerseys of Liverpool and Manchester, wouldn't you bring them home and flog them? No, you wouldn't flog them for wearing the jerseys or protesting to the fact that the Queen was in Dublin. You'd be flogging them because they're fucking idiots. Let's call a spade a spade. Excuse the language, but that's, I still can't comprehend it, but it just goes to show how brain dead these people are. You can only laugh at it. You can only laugh at it. But as I say, guys, the excuse language, by the way, I didn't mean to let that one out. As I say, the relationship between the two countries has been a lot better in the last 27 years. I had hoped, and I'm not just saying this because I was born in England or anything like it, guys, I had hoped that she would have made a second visit to the Irish Republic. Unfortunately, it wasn't to be. It would have been lovely to see the Queen of England in Dublin again during her lifetime. King Charles, when he was Prince Charles, when things settled down in this country, after the deal of 1998 and things were settling down, he came to the Republic in a private capacity because he was a prince. He wasn't king at the time, and he was coming to the south of Ireland in a private capacity. He was down in Tipperary at one of our national monuments called the Rock of Cashel, the May before his mother passed away, and he came out of the Rock of Cashel. I was only down there 2 days ago myself, but he was there anyway in May, the year his mother passed away, 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago. But when he came out, the Irish journalists were asking him, did he like coming to the Irish Republic? And he says, yeah, I love it. He says, it's on my bucket list to travel to every county in the Irish Republic. Now that he's king, right, the protocol has changed a little. I think he has to be invited now. He can't just come in a private capacity anymore. But again, unfortunately, he hasn't been in great health. We all know about that. And hopefully he will make it a good recovery, that he will be invited in the future, and he will get to come and visit the Irish Republic as king. And I know that the people of the Irish Republic will do exactly what they did when his mother came. They will welcome him with open arms. We've come a long way in the last 27 years, guys. I'm getting to the end of this, and I know you're probably sick listening to me, but about 18 years ago here in Northern Ireland, they opened up Educate Together schools, where religion is not taught in these schools at all, right? And the kids come from all different cultures and backgrounds and religions and skin tones, and they go to school together. They're growing up together. They're learning to respect each other's cultures, religions, backgrounds, genders, skin tones, and that's the way forward. We've started in the last 10-15 years down south, and these schools have already been proven to be working. So it just goes to show, we are changing this country for the better, for the kids of the future, and that's what counts. We cannot change history, but we can change the future and make it a better place for kids of all religions, all genders, all skin tones, no matter where they come from, no matter if they're sons and daughters of immigrants who have come into this country to try and make a better life for themselves. That's what we're working at. That's hopefully the road that we're following. So guys, I'm going to leave the history there. As I said, I've given you a synopsis of Irish history. That has been a synopsis, okay? It hasn't been everything, alright? I could talk to you for weeks and weeks and weeks about Irish history. We went into everything. I wasn't prepared to do that today, right? Because we should be back in Dublin. I'm playing a gig in Dublin tonight, so I'll have to be back for that. I'm not telling you. I'm not telling you. No, it's not actually. It's outside. It's about 20 miles outside Dublin, close to where I live. But that's been a synopsis of Irish history, guys. It has been a very dark history, a very troubled history, and we cannot do anything about it. So we have to change the future, and that's what we're working at. And hopefully that has given you a better understanding of where this country has been, where we have come from, and hopefully into the future where we intend to go. And that's basically it. So, are you sick listening to me? I bet you are. All the people down the back are asleep. Are all the people down the back asleep?
Yes.
Hold on. The nose haven't hit me yet, they're so far away. Anyway, not to worry. Guys, we're coming up to the first official stop of the morning. We are coming up to the Dark Hedges for all of you Game of Thrones fans. Yay! By the way, I did try to watch Game of Thrones when it came out. First season, first episode, 8 minutes, fell asleep. Yeah. Second episode, 10 minutes, fell asleep. Third episode, 15 minutes, fell asleep. Now, I'm going on holidays in about 5-6 weeks time, right? I have it all downloaded onto a tablet. I'm going to try and watch it on the plane. Yeah, hopefully it'll help me fall asleep. Look to the left here. There was a load of timber there last week. They were getting it ready. They were collecting it for the 12th of July. On the 11th of July every year they burn bonfires here in the north of Ireland. Yeah, they commemorate the victory of the Battle of the Boyne on the 12th of July, and we'll tell you about that a little bit later on when we're passing through Bushmills, the little town where they make all the whiskey. So guys, we're coming up to the Dark Hedges now. All of these trees were planted about 250 odd years ago. They're all beech trees, and they were planted by the people who used to own all of this land. They were known as the Stewart family. And the reason they planted all the trees was because they wanted a nice entrance into their house. The house today is called Grace Hill House, and it's a part of the golf club today. But back then, they planted all the trees because they wanted a nice entrance. Basically, they wanted to show off. And over the years, as I say, some of the trees had to be cut down because of disease. Some of them have been blown down because of the storms. Just up the way here, we have the Dark Hedges, made famous from the TV show Game of Thrones. Now, we're also told that the Grey Lady